Hi, everybody. This is Congressman Mark Alford with a special edition of Mark Alford's Capitol Recap. I'm coming to you live from the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives as your congressman from the 4th Congressional District of the great state of Missouri. This is a special night, a night in which President Donald J. Trump will deliver a not State of the Union technically, but a joint session of Congress, an invitation from Speaker Mike Johnson. It is standing room only. In fact, I got here an hour before the event is to take place, and all the seats are already filled. It's standing room only. The gallery is completely full. I brought as my guest tonight Jeff Martin from Lee Summit, who is a small business owner there. And the media is packed, the gallery is packed, and the members are packed to hear what the president has to say. This is a very important time in U.S. history. President Trump has promised to make America first again, and we're going to hear about his America First agenda. He has made so many accomplishments in his first 43 days in office. I want you to hear from some of the Congress members who were anticipating what the president might say in his first address to Congress in his second term, and here they are. I'm here with the chair of Judiciary, Jim Jordan, friend of mine. He was in Kansas City watching a Kansas City Chiefs game with us this past August.
Oh, yeah, when they beat the Bengals.
And we played golf there on the Kansas side.
We did.
I didn't do too well.
Well, you did fine. We had a great time. Always good to
You're
get out
a good golfer.
to your neck of the woods and play some sports, watch the sports. More importantly, talk to some good Republicans. You had a great event.
We did. Want to have you back. But so the president is going to deliver his address to the joint session of Congress tonight. What are you expecting?
Well, I think he's probably going to talk about the amazing pace that he's been on these first 6 weeks and all that he's accomplished, him and his team, whether it's the DOGE issues where we've seen all the ridiculous things that taxpayer money is being spent on, whether it's securing the border, all the good work that they're doing there, the changes we're making to energy policy, the changes we plan to make to the tax policy so Americans get to keep more of their money, all those things I think he'll talk about. And then, of course, I think there'll be some about his vision for where he wants to take the country, how he wants to make our country great again, and also the foreign policy issue, which is, front and center right now, is particularly with the Ukraine, how he wants to, as the one leader in the world who's actively working for a way to stop the killing and get to peace there. I assume we'll talk about all that.
Have you seen an administration move this fast in the first 43 days?
Never seen it at this kind of pace, this kind of focused intensity. My background's a sport of wrestling. I learned a long time ago, wrestling, you stand around, you're going to get your tail kicked. You got to be on the offense. And certainly President Trump, his team, Elon, their team, they understand that, and that's what they're doing.
They've got the waste, abuse, of fraud and a full Nelson.
Yeah, they did. Well said. Well said. And, I always say we make this job too complicated. It's pretty simple. What'd you tell the voters you were going to do when you ran for it? If you get elected, do what you said. You do that every single day for the folks you represent. President Trump does it for the whole country.
Thank you, sir.
You bet, buddy. Good to see you.
I'm here with Dean Hal Rogers, the Dean of the U.S. House of Representatives. This will be his 44th presidential address to a joint session of Congress. Good to see you, Dean.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'm delighted to be here. It's a phenomenon, this event. It's democracy in action.
You've been through 44 addresses by how many different presidents?
Well, starting with Carter, I think it's 8 or 9, including Reagan, whom was the best of all, I think.
What do you remember most about some of Reagan's speeches? And I think at one time you told me Bill Clinton did a pretty good job at his State of the Unions.
He did. At the time, he was enthralled in the event back in that time. But the most memorable to me was Reagan in 81, after he had been shot and recuperated, making his first appearance then before the public, really, and was received with astounding ovations.
What are you expecting from President Trump tonight?
A long speech.
He has a lot of wins under his belt already, though. For being only in office for under 50 days, look what he's done.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's got a lot of balls in the air, and I hope they all turn out good.
You were here when Pelosi tore up the speech behind Trump in his first term. What was that like being here on the floor for that?
Well, it was tumultuous. People booed and hissed and various ways of disapproval. That was a sorry spectacle.
You think we've lost decorum on the House floor?
Yes.
How do we get that back?
Well, that's a good question. It's going to take some moral leadership from somebody or some group, but it needs to be done.
I see that as reflective, though, as culture in America, our public discourse. We're not exchanging ideas, we're exchanging emotions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I see that at town halls and public meetings that we try to have where you can't have a discussion with someone and try to bring ideas and solve problems. It's a lot of playing for the cameras.
That's right. And frankly, C-SPAN, as good a job as they do, still yet, the members that are the loudest get the most attention in the press. So you tend to get extreme on the left and the right.
And the loudest voices tend to raise more money on social media. And it's kind of a vicious cycle, isn't it?
That's right. I think televising a House proceedings promotes people taking extreme positions just to be noticed on TV.
Well, I notice you because you're a calm voice of reason, rationality, and patriotism for America. And I appreciate you, Dean Rogers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. You're doing, by the way, a great job. People love you.
Oh, well, thank you. Trying to follow in your footsteps, sir. I'm here with August Pfluger of Texas, a friend of mine, and also the chair of the Republican Study Committee, the largest conservative caucus on Capitol Hill. Good to have you with us, Chairman. What do you expect tonight in the president's speech?
Oh, I think this is going to be a historic night. You know, you've got a president who learned the lessons of a first term, saw the tragedy of a Biden administration, and is riding the ship. And I think you're going to see a very aggressive approach. But I think I predict, and I don't know this, but I bet there's going to be some surprises. I bet he's going to announce things that people didn't expect, things that not only get our country back on track, but that unify us in a way that when Americans start thinking about the actions he's taking and they say, oh, I don't know if I like that approach. It's very aggressive. Well, yeah, it is. It's looking out for our country. But I bet he announces some things that will surprise us. That's my prediction.
Many of the people listening to this station right now are conservatives. As I said, the Republican Study Committee, the largest conservative caucus on Capitol Hill. We're taking a look at the budget now. We had a budget task force meeting. What do we need to do to right the ship when it comes to our economy, our budget, our spending in Congress?
Well, Mark, you've been an integral part of what the Republican Study Committee is doing. We have taken a position. We want to see a deficit and debt reducing bill. We want to see the tax cuts extended, but we also want to see our fiscal house back in order. So that's the most important thing. That's the game in town. That's the Super Bowl, is passing a reconciliation, one big, beautiful bill. I bet President Trump talks about that big, beautiful bill today because it's so important for our economy. But the second step is going to be when we start looking at Article 1, the legislative authority, the power of the purse, appropriating the funds, taking into account what Elon Musk is recommending on how we gain efficiencies, get rid of fraud, waste, and abuse. This is the next step that we're going to take to gain Americans' confidence that we can pass legislation that responsibly appropriates and still cuts spending, but provides for what we need, most importantly, for the defense of our country.
August Pfluger, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here with Chairman Roger Williams of the Committee on Small Business. We had a very good meeting today with the new administrator of Small Business Administration, Kelly Loeffler. Tell us about that.
We're excited to be working with Kelly Loeffler. She's a businesswoman. She's from Georgia, former U.S. Senator. It's going to be night and day. She understands if you cut taxes to small business, you cut regulations, you have a better chance of creating more jobs and more opportunities in this country. So it's going to be great. And it came out of the meeting. And the fact she says she's going to go try to cover every office outside of Washington and go to the regional offices, that's a big deal. So we're on a good pathway.
And recovering some of this money that was lost from the EIDL loans and PPP loans to the previous administration. The previous administrator had no interest in reclaiming for the American people.
Well, you're exactly right. And we talked, about the $70 billion that on EIDL money that hasn't had any kind of action on it in 3 or 4 years. We talked about factoring that money, putting money back in Main Street. Thinking out of the box, she gets it, and we're going to be able to work with her really well.
You were here during the first Trump administration. You were in office as a congressman from Texas. What are you expecting out of the president today?
I think what we're going to see is his vision for America the next 4 years. It's going to be a vision of less government. It's going to be a vision of government by the people. It's going to be one for opportunity. It's going to be one for strong borders. It's going to be one for an energy plan, and it's going to be one to let small businesses to compete against each other rather than competing against the federal government.
Can you believe the speed with which Doge, Elon Musk, and those are dismantling the waste, abuse, and fraud within our government?
Well, the speed is great, but isn't it amazing the money they're coming up with?
Yeah.
My gosh. And we've only scratched the surface. So he's getting attacked a lot by the liberal left-wing communists for being here, not being elected, but they forget that Fauci wasn't elected either. And it's not out of the ordinary for your listeners that own businesses to hire outside auditors, outside reviewers to check the books. And that's all he's doing. The president asked him to check the books, and he's uncovering some things.
Chairman Williams, thank you, and come back to Kansas City sometime. We enjoyed having you.
We're looking forward to it. It's a pleasure to serve with you.
Same here, sir. Thank you. When we come back, we'll have some reaction to that speech. You're listening to Mark Alford's Capitol Recap, a special edition live from the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. Stay with us. I'm here with Jason Smith, fellow Missourian and chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. We've been working on the House budget resolution and moving forward the reconciliation. What are you expecting in the president's address to Congress?
Really excited about his address to Congress. I think he's going to talk about the successes that he's had in his first 43 days in office. You think about 1.6 trillion worth of investment that he has convinced companies to invest in the United States. That's almost more than what happened in the first 4 years of the Biden administration. When you look at what he's done with the border, and I think you're going to hear him remind Congress, I need you to finish what you started in that one big, beautiful bill that will create tax cuts for working Americans, will create energy independence, will secure the border, and it will cut reckless spending.
We're moving towards a reconciliation process. We got on the dance floor with the House budget resolution last week, a big step for America. You led the charge on that. Explain to our listeners where we go from here.
So we're waiting on the Senate to either pass the resolution that we passed or amend it and send it back. This resolution sets up the instructions of the underlining bill, the reconciliation bill, and then we can start operating on that and send it to the president's desk.
A lot of people are concerned about the layoffs. We had those in Kansas City, IRS layoffs. A lot of people have been laid off from the federal government, which I maintain, hey, government jobs are not immune. It happens in the private sector when you're trying to right-size a business. We've got to right-size our government.
Government needs to be efficient, and it needs to be serving the people. It's very unfortunate that when President Trump took office, only 9% of the federal workforce was showing up to work. That was absolutely unacceptable. He's changed those policies. People have to deliver for the American citizen.
You have a close relationship with President Trump, and you visit with him often regarding the budget and how we right-size our government. And Elon Musk, who's going to be, I think he's going to be here tonight. I know we're meeting with him tomorrow night here on Capitol Hill. It's kind of a shock and awe strategy, the way that DOGE is going in and finding the waste, abuse, and fraud. I had no idea there was that much of it in our government.
I would totally agree with you, Mark. I was shocked to see the money that was being spent in USAID. Just prime example. Who would think millions of dollars was being spent to create drag shows in other countries and just crazy, crazy items when USAID is supposed to be there to help folks who are starving in Africa and other nations like that. The fact that they were spreading DEI all over the planet, unacceptable.
Well, Jason, thank you for your hard work. Good to have you as a friend and mentor and the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee.
Appreciate serving with you. It's a blessing.
Thank you. I'm here with Dr. Ronny Jackson, former doctor for the White House, several presidents, good friend of President Trump, a good friend of mine here in Congress. Ronny, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mark. Thank you.
What are you expecting out of the president's speech tonight?
Well, I think it's going to be long. Let's just start with that. I think it's going to be close to 2 hours. He talks and they probably wrote his speech to be close to an hour. There'll be some interruptions from the Dems. He'll ad lib a lot, and just go off script a lot as he always does, which is great because, it's real, it's genuine. So I expect this can be a long speech. I expect that it's going to be all 100% America first, which is, why he got elected. I'm looking forward to it. I think that he'll talk a lot about, what's going on in the country, talk about Ukraine, he'll talk about the tariffs, he'll explain to the American people, really what he's trying to do with some of this stuff, because there's some questions out there. But look, the man's judgment is impeccable. I mean, he always chooses the right path. Even when, and obviously, like you said, Mark, I've been around him for a long time. I was his physician. I was at the White House for 14 years, including 3 years with him. And the first thing I noticed is this man always goes with his instinct, and his instinct is always right. And even if it doesn't look like it's right in the first few days or first few weeks, it always turns out to be the absolute right decision. And so I'm looking forward to him, and I love the way he just pushes hard, and he doesn't care what the press thinks. He doesn't care what, the detractors and the Democrats think or say. He's going to do what he thinks is the right thing to do, period, end of story. And it's always going to be what's best for this country.
What do you think about the pace that DOJ is moving to eliminate waste, abuse, and fraud within our government?
I mean, look, I think it's great. I mean, yeah, they're going fast. Are they going to have to make some course corrections? Of course. I think Elon Musk even said when he starts a new company, if he goes in and he cleans house and he doesn't have to come back and reinstate 15, 20% of what he's done, that he didn't cut deep enough. And I think that's a reality. There'll be some people that were cut inadvertently. They're going to get their jobs back. But look, we're looking at this from a national security standpoint. We're going to make sure we do the right things. But yes, in order to do this and do this effectively with this bloated bureaucracy that we all have right now and all the money that we waste in the federal government, someone has to come in and they have to be aggressive. And the combination of Donald Trump and Elon Musk is just unbeatable in that regard.
You're on the Intel Committee now. What are your feelings about Ukraine getting out of this in a peaceful manner?
Well, I think Zelensky has made some serious missteps. I mean, I don't think that this guy has any, diplomatic sense about him. I think regardless of what he's done for his country, which I know he's done some good things for the country over the last 3 years in this war, he has zero political sense. To come into the White House, sit down with the president, and, cross his arms with a sense of entitlement. He blindsided the White House, by the way. I mean, we know this, right? JD knew this. That's why JD stepped in, is because they had a bilat before that, and none of this stuff was brought up. He waited until he was in front of the cameras to bring up a lot of the stuff that he brought up, hoping that he would put the president in a bad position. The president would say and do things that would box him in. And obviously, the president did not take his bait. JD did not take his bait. And it proved that what a poor diplomat this guy actually is. And he said things since then, so he's talked about how the war in Ukraine is not going to end anytime soon. It's going to go on for years. What a crazy thing to say in this environment, right? He has thousands and thousands of Ukrainians that are dying every month in this war. I mean, they're being butchered. Russians are being butchered too. Lots of people are losing their lives. Everyone should want an end to what's going on right now in Ukraine. And, President Trump's trying to make sure that happens. And he should be coming to this country, and he should be thanking the Americans for what they've done so far, and he should be working with President Trump to figure out how he can get the most leverage possible, right, against Vladimir Putin, come up with the best settlement, the best deal possible. President Trump is willing to do that. He's willing to partner here with him on that. And President Trump is no fan of Putin, right? I mean, President Trump respects Putin because he's aggressive and because, he's Russia first. And, you got to respect some of that because President Trump is America first, and he respects that. President is a patriotic guy who cares about his country. President Trump cares about his country too. And he cares about Ukraine's success and Ukraine winning this war as a result of it. But Zelensky has not taken advantage of the president's willingness to help in this thus far. And Zelensky's got to come with his hat in his hand. He's got to apologize to the president. He's got to restart. He's got to fix what's broken. And I hope he does. We'll see.
Thank you, Ronny, for your service to our great nation.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you.
We just finished up with I think one of the best speeches I've ever heard from a president of the United States. Well, what do we have to compare in person? It was Biden last year who yelled at us. I still have PTSD from that. But let me tell you, President Trump did a remarkable job of recapping the wins for his administration. He has done more in the 43 days that he has been in office than most presidents have done in the entire term. With me is the chairman of the Veterans Committee, Mike Bost, a good friend of mine. What'd you think, Mike?
Well, Mark, we have a president like we've never seen in our lifetime. He is aggressive. What's unbelievable is his energy level is beyond measure. But he surrounded himself with people that you wouldn't normally surround yourself in politics, because what he did was he went out and chose the best for those jobs. He also then highlights everything that the American people are feeling, except for the Democrats.
The Democrats, I think, were disgusting in their display, especially Mr. Green from Texas. Although a nice guy, I think you just don't show that level of disrespect to the President of the United States. Kind of the same disrespect that Zelensky showed in the Oval Office. Look, I think we're headed in the right direction under this president. We have a long way to go. I can't believe we're going to have 3 years and 8 months more with this president in office, because this is a remarkable time in American history. And we are in for the ride of our lifetime to make America great again. This is an exciting time to be an American and an exciting time to be in Congress. Don't you agree?
It is. And you said that. Make America great again. This is for our children, grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren.